This video is a tutorial on building a simple server-side pagination using JavaScript, PHP, and MySQL. Codes and demo for these are available in description. To make the coding process easy, I'll first draw a flowchart depicting the entire process. This will provide a clear picture of how the user action translates into server calls, database queries, and front-end updates. The first step is when a new user opens the web page. By default, the system loads the first page of data from the database and displays it on the screen. This ensures the user immediately sees some results without having to do anything. When the user clicks on a page button, JavaScript sends a request to the server specifying which page of data is needed. When the server receives a request, it filters records from database, converts them into JSON format, and sends it back to the client. When the client-side script receives the returned JSON data, it uses it to update the web page with new content. Now, let's turn these flowcharts into actual codes. First, create a database in MySQL called Pagination demo. Inside this database, add a table named photos and fill it with some sample data. Each entry should include a title, a description, and a photo URL. To save your time, I have included a SQL dump file in the description. You will also find a zipped folder with sample images that you can use. Next, we need to make sure PHP can securely access this database. For that, create a new MySQL user and assign it the necessary privileges. In this demo, we will use a user named demoUser with password strong password. After setting up the database, create two PHP files, index.php and server.php. We will begin with the server-side logic. So go ahead and open server.php in your code editor. Let's see how the server handles client request and returns data in JSON format. The very first step is setting the response header to JSON format. This ensures the client always interprets the response correctly as JSON. Next, we define database constants: the host, username, password, and database name. These details are then used to initialize a MySQL connection. When the client sends a request, it includes two inputs, page and limit. The page indicates which page number the user is requesting, and the limit defines how many records should appear on that page. Now keep in mind that database itself isn't divided into pages. To emulate pagination, we calculate something called offset. The offset is simply the page number multiplied by the limit. We then plug both the offset and the limit into the SQL query. This way, we only fetch the records that belong to that specific page. After running the query, we loop through the results and build them into an array. At the same time, we also calculate the total number of records in the database. This total is important because it helps the client display valid page number buttons. Finally, we take everything and encode it as JSON and send it back to the client. And that completes the server-side process. Let's proceed to the client side for pagination. I will skip the basic HTML headers and body and move straight into the JavaScript code. We begin by defining a class called photogallery. Inside the constructor, we set up the default values for the class properties. The page number is initialized to 0, and the limit is either taken from the user's input or defaults to 6 items per page. The total number of pages is also set to 0. Along with these, we store the API URL for fetching data from the server, the container element where the photos will be displayed, and the pagination elements that appear at both the top and the bottom of the page. The photogallery class is powered by several functions. The init method loads the very first page of the gallery when a new user visits the page. It also sets up event listeners for page buttons by calling the bind event method. To actually fetch the data for the first page as well as any subsequent pages the user requests, we use the render data method. This makes an AJAX call to the server and provides page number and limit value as input data. Once the client receives a response from the server, it executes two methods: render cards and render pagination. For render cards, we use the Bootstrap library as it makes it easier to display photos along with their titles and descriptions as cards. Finally, the render pagination method creates the page buttons. These buttons are generated based on the total number of pages, which is calculated and provided for by the server. To use this photo gallery class, we need to create a new class object and specify the parameters. So, that was a high-level description of how the client-side implementation works. I encourage you to go through the code files provided in the description and try to connect the dots to see the complete picture. You will also find a link to the live demo. If you have any questions or doubt, feel free to drop them in the comment section.